Hello, my name is Paul Sonneveld, and I'm the co-founder and product owner here at Merchant Spring. Thank you so much for joining us. In this introductory session, I'm going to give you an overview of the platform. Specifically, I'm going to cover what is Merchant Spring, what are all the different components to it. I'll touch on data history, accuracy, and the refresh frequency. I'll show you how to connect your first channel, and I'll also show you how to add, remove, and rename channels. All right, let's jump right in. Let's start with what is Merchant Spring? Let's have a look at the platform. Merchant Spring is a multi-channel analytics dashboard and reporting solution. It connects to over 120 different channels, allowing you to see all of your channels' performance in a single platform with extensive drill down capabilities, reporting, and notification features. I think at this point, it's also important to stress what we are not. We are not a product research tool. So if you're looking to discover a new niche on Amazon, we're not your solution. Also, if you're looking to manage your campaign structures, increase your bidding, do all of that advertising associated with Amazon or other channels, that is not our bread and butter. We do provide extensive reporting, but we don't do bid management, just to make that clear. Okay, so let's have a look at the different parts of the application. You can see on our home screen here a navigation bar right at the top, right here. Now, there are 4 components that I would like to point out, possibly 5. But in terms of core functionality, there are 4. They are the dashboard, my channels, reports, and the notification center that's popped up here as well. And let me just explain briefly the role of each of these 4. First of all, the dashboard, which is the page that we're on now, and we'll go into depth in our next session on this particular topic. The dashboard provides you with a total business view of what's happening across your business, or across your agency, or across your entire investment operations if you're an aggregator. The dashboard looks at sales, it looks at profitability, it looks at advertising and operational information so that you can see how all of your channels are tracking at 1,000 feet view. And really the idea here is that we provide you with a quick insight so that you can very quickly prioritize where to spend your time and energy. My channels provide you with extensive drill down functionality into a particular store. So we're looking at one channel at a time here. As you can see, there's a whole plethora of information here, starting with a dashboard as well as an extensive menu here on the left-hand side. Reporting is where you can create both manual reports as well as scheduled reports for a single channel or for a multi-channel, and have those delivered to your or someone else's email address on a periodic basis. And again, there's a separate module here as well. And last but not least, in terms of functionality, our notification center. This is the area where you can set alerts and determine what alerts you want to receive, how you want to receive them, and we also provide you with the functionality to actually act on those. Again, we'll cover these in a separate section. Let's talk a little bit about the data and how the data gets into the platform to start with. Merchant Spring connects via APIs. We exclusively use API connections, and we are an official partner with Amazon, Walmart, and most of the other marketplaces. We don't scrape data. We don't get it from third-party data sources. We get it purely from their APIs. And hence, it's important to connect your channels via our API connection process. We'll go through an example there in a second. A very common question at this point is always, how up to date and frequent is the data? And you can find a lot of detail here in some of our help articles. If you go to help.merchantspring.io, you'll find extensive articles that show you item by item what the data is and how often it's refreshed. But in a nutshell, most of the data that you see here, whether it be sales data, financial events data, or advertising data, is refreshed about every 60 to 90 minutes. So in other words, we refresh that data multiple times during the day. It's not real time, but you will see intraday performance. And that includes things like pending orders that Amazon or other marketplaces are yet to verify. There are other types of information, such as product attributes, let's say images or product titles, or even some of the traffic reports. These are only available on a daily basis. So hence, every 24 hours, you'll notice there's a new data set that is coming in. I do want to touch on vendors, because for vendors, and I'm talking specifically here around Amazon vendors, there can be a 72-hour delay, particularly with retail analytics. This is a constraint on Amazon's side. We do check for new data multiple times a day, but typically we find the data is not available until the 72-hour window for Amazon has finished. Now, the next question is, how much history do we pull in and how long do we store the data for? That really depends on two things. That depends on the plan that you're on, and that the plan depends on the capabilities of the individual channel itself. As a general rule of thumb, if you're on a vendor or a standard agency plan, we will obtain 365 days worth of data. In other words, when you connect a store, we will go back in time for at least a full year. If you're on our premium plan, we go as far back as 2 years. We'll get all of that data. And syncing that to your account can take a little bit of time. As you can imagine, we're dealing with a lot of data. But the main challenge for us here as Merchant Spring is actually working within the API limits of the individual platforms. So it can take a few weeks until we've got a full set of 2 years data available for us. Now, of course, there are some pieces of data that Amazon or other marketplaces will not allow us to obtain history. The most obvious example here is advertising. We can obtain 90 days worth of data in terms of campaign data, keyword data, but we aren't able to go beyond that time period. The data simply isn't there. Amazon doesn't return it to us. So in that case, we go back as far as we can, and then we will build up that history over time. And again, depends a little bit on the plan, but for most brands, we maintain at least 2 years worth of history, and in most cases, at least 4 years worth of history. Now, I would like to say, if you have specific requirements around the histories, let's say you want us to try and pull in 3 years worth of data, or you want us to store your data for a longer period of time, feel free to get in touch, and we will try and do our best to help you out on that front. Before I finish this introductory session, I also just want to talk to you about the date range selector and some of the other settings. So for example, here we have our date range selector here. This selector allows you to determine what the window is that you're looking at the data. You can choose any particular time period and compare that to any time period you wish. We've got some presets here, so it's quite easy to compare, say, the last 30 days versus the prior period or versus last year. But you're not restricted to that. You can select any period and compare it to any other period. A very common example last year was the second Prime Day that Amazon ran towards the end of the year and comparing that to the first Prime Day just to see where the differences were. The other thing here that's really important to note is that we can look at the data through different time zones. Marketplaces will put a different time zone stamp on the data depending on where the marketplace is located. So for example, in the US, Walmart and Amazon tend to use PST, Pacific Standard Time, as a timestamp. In the UK, it's GMT, and in Europe, it's Central European Time. Of course, different again in Japan and Asia Pacific and the like. If you are interested in making sure the numbers that you're looking at Merchant Spring reconcile back to what you're seeing in the back end of the marketplace, you've got to do two things. You've got to make sure that, first of all, the time zone is aligned. So if you're looking at a US store, pick Los Angeles here for PST. If you're looking for a UK store, Europe, London, or Berlin, for example, is a good choice. The second aspect here relates to the little toggle up here. And it's a little bit hidden, but here in the top right-hand corner, you see a toggle. And this toggle here allows you to include or exclude text in most of the numbers that we show. This toggle here is important because the treatment of data is different by country. What I mean by that is, Amazon, for example, in the US shows all of the figures excluding sales tax. In Europe, it's including VAT, for those of you that are based in Europe. So again, if you're looking at making sure our numbers here in Merchant Spring match the numbers for those in what you see in the back end of Seller Central or other marketplaces, make sure that your tax setting is the same and we're comparing apples and apples. So time zone and tax settings are very, very important. Now, everything I've shown you here assumes there's data into the platform, which comes back to the question, how do we connect data in the first place? Well, that's where this button up here comes in. We can go to the Add Channel button here, and as you can see from here, you can click on any of these to start the process to connect a marketplace or a channel to your account. For example, if you click on Amazon Seller, you can select the country. Once we click Authorize, you'll be directed to an Amazon login screen, which I don't think is going to be visible here. It essentially asks you to authorize Merchant Spring Marketplace Manager. There's a series of permissions we'll be asking for, everything from selling partner insights to inventory and order tracking. And then right at the bottom of the screen, you click Confirm to link the store. That's all there is to it on the Amazon front. And typically this is a really quick process. It should not take you more than a couple of minutes, probably seconds. Simply username and password and login screen. Other areas like Walmart, for example, actually require you to log into Walmart Seller Center and generate a client ID and client secret. And these attributes can be different by marketplace. That's why we've included a link here in yellow. How do I find this? By clicking on this, we will take you to the relevant help article inside our knowledge base, and we will show you step by step what you need to do inside, in this case, Walmart Seller Center, to generate the relevant credentials in order to connect your account. Of course, if you get stuck, please get in touch and we will do our best to help you out. Last but not least, I do want to show you that there's a lot more other channels that we can see here on the list. So we've just shown you the most popular ones here at the top, but if you're looking for a particular seller, a particular channel in South America, Europe, or North America, or anywhere else, feel free to scroll down this list to try and find the store or the channel that you're looking for. If you can't find it on the list, please get in touch and let us know what you are missing. There's a high chance that if you need it, someone else needs it, and it may already be on our roadmap. All right. That concludes really the introductory session of this overview training. By now, you should have a good understanding of what Merchant Spring is, the different components of the platform, how we get data into the platform, the history, the accuracy, the refresh frequency, and how you connect your channel. Thank you so much for tuning in.